Andrews, and I'm one of the directors at CB Heating in Clacton-on-Sea. That's a very relevant question, and it's certainly a question that we get asked a lot, not in terms of the installation costs, but also in terms of, more importantly, the running costs. So where the answer to that actually begins is in how these things actually work. So a heat pump extracts heat from the air, and through a refrigeration process, it's able to get essentially a 3-to-1 return on the amount of energy that you put in. So what that means is if you use 1 kilowatt of electricity, you'll produce 3 kilowatts of heat. Now, when you compare that to a gas boiler, for example, even the most efficient gas boilers will be at most 90-something% efficient. So if you put 1 kilowatt of gas energy in, you'll get just short of 1 kilowatt of heat energy out. So then when you look at that and compare that 3-to-1 ratio, you then look at the cost of electricity, you look at the cost of gas. If it requires 3 times as much gas as it does electricity from a heat pump to get the same amount of heat out, then you've got a comparative rate of cost of heating. Now, as soon as that gas price increases, or indeed the electricity price decreases, then the heat pump becomes a more cost-effective way of heating that house. So it's largely due to this coefficient of performance, as it's known. The amount of energy you put in, the amount of energy you get out, and the cost of that energy. So in short, the cost of running a heat pump right now, due to the differences in cost of gas and electricity, is about the same as a gas boiler. But certainly going forwards, where there'll be additional carbon taxes added to the price of gas and such like, then that will get better and better from the point of view of heating your house with a heat pump. Now, right now, in terms of the cost of installing it, there is a grant available for the cost of a heat pump. That grant is £5,000. It's what's known as the boiler upgrade scheme. That grant is only available for the next 3 years. So the key point here is, whilst the savings on gas by changing to a heat pump today aren't huge, if at all, the saving on installing the heat pump today is £5,000. Now, some people may wait a couple of years until the gas and electricity prices change and they go, right, I'm going to make an immediate saving on my heating bill by changing to a heat pump in a few years' time. However, at that point in time, there won't be a £5,000 grant. So it makes an awful lot of sense to invest in a heat pump now, even if the savings aren't immediately there, because you get a saving on the installation cost. Variety of different shapes and sizes, and it's very much dictated by the heat loss of a property. So not necessarily the size or type of property, but specifically the heat loss of a property. So in other words, the more heat that a building is losing, the bigger the heat pump you need to put in there to replace that heat at the rate at which it's losing it. Now, the levels of insulation of that property will also dictate the heat loss and therefore the size of the heat pump. So insulation is really where you should begin the journey of installing a heat pump. You want to reduce that heat loss to an absolute minimum. That will then minimize the size of the heat pump that's required. As I say, they actually do come in different shapes and sizes, different types. So in brief terms, you can get a high temperature heat pump and a low temperature heat pump. A high temperature heat pump is really designed to be basically a boiler swap. So on that basis, it will work with existing radiators. It will work with an existing hot water cylinder and such like. With a low temperature heat pump, as the name would suggest, its circulating temperature is lower. As a result, it works better with the likes of underfloor heating because they're a low temperature heating circuit, or if somebody's prepared to improve and upgrade their radiators for ones with a higher output. Now, you may hear, oh, when you get a heat pump, you need to have massive radiators. That's not true. What you need are radiators with a larger surface area, and that's easily achieved by perhaps swapping single radiators for double radiators, and also radiators with a larger surface area. If you actually look down Down the top of the radiators you have at home, you may see that there's fins on the back of those radiators. Those fins increase the surface area, so that makes the output higher, and they can therefore work with a lower temperature heat pump. So high temperature heat pumps, low temperature heat pumps. Again, they'll look different, they'll be different in size. So there's a number of different factors, as we say, that would dictate which one you need. Now, in terms of, that's all very well and good, but how big are they? The largest one is, what can we compare it to? It would be, it's basically, it's about a metre wide by 1.5 metres tall and about 40 centimetres deep. So it's not huge. Smaller ones could be not dissimilar to an air conditioning unit in size and appearance. So they're certainly not going to take over the back garden, but you do have to be mindful of where you put them. So you must have at least a metre of space in front of it for all the airflow. So you can't put it down like an alleyway and then squeeze past it. It must get proper airflow. So we'll look at all of that type of thing anyway to ensure that it's going in the right place to get the most performance out of it. But it is something to be mindful of. Simply if there isn't an appropriate place for it, then it might not be feasible to install a heat pump in that particular building. Heating is a plumbing and heating company that's been around installing heat pumps for over 20 years. In the last couple of years, we've experienced a significant rate of growth, and this is due to market conditions and also a change in directors within the business that focused on scaling the business to a national level. And it was this that caught the eye of EDF Energy. EDF, of course, have got plans to introduce the electrification of heat and reduce to net zero. And so they needed to partner with a heat pump installer that had the same vision as themselves, a national coverage to help homeowners. So when EDF became aware of CB Heating, it made a lot of sense for them to actually partner up with CB Heating and invest in CB Heating. That has then allowed us to create what we refer to as our heat pump installer network, which is HPIN for short. And what that is, it's exactly as it sounds. It's a national network of heat pump installers. Now that network is built up of local plumbing and heating specialists. They're independent companies that, along with EDF, we're able to partner with. Now, what this means is that it's not simply a case of a multi-billion-pound organisation such as EDF coming into the marketplace and pushing the small businesses out. Quite the opposite. It's a case of a huge organisation then pairing and partnering with the local businesses. What this means for the homeowner is that you still get to use that local company that provides that local service, that you get peace of mind and backup of dealing with a national company or indeed a multi-billion turnover company such as EDF when we're partnered with them. So it's a really interesting future partnership between EDF and ourselves, CB Heating, and all local installers nationwide. So next week, I'm actually carrying out a webinar via the Energy and Low Carbon Project with Essex County Council. It's really to raise awareness of low carbon technologies into retrofit homes. It will be covering all the basics of heat pumps, how they work, what they do, why we should have them, and also probably more importantly, when it's not feasible to install these systems, because that's really important as well, that they only go into the right types of properties to ensure that the benefits are realised. We'll also be covering the boiler upgrade scheme, which is a grant that allows a homeowner to get £5,000 directly off the cost of the installation of the heat pump, which obviously helps them with their cash flow. So yeah, that's a webinar that we'll be doing for around about half an hour to local residents. Future of heating in the UK is electrification. As it is with transport and many other things, it's the move away from carbon technologies. So electrification, certainly when the electricity is being generated by low or zero carbon means, such as wind turbines, solar, and of course, nuclear energy. This is where everything is going. It is the inevitable future. When you consider that in 2025, there is a boiler ban on new build properties, meaning that fossil fuel boilers will not be allowed to be installed into new builds, which means largely heat pumps will be the answer in that type of situation. There are other electrification methods of heating, be it storage heaters, which we're all familiar with, electric radiators, infrared heating and such like, but none of those actually give the same return on investment as a heat pump, simply because of the 3-to-1 coefficient of performance. The other type of electric heating will only ever give you a 1-to-1. So certainly the future of heating is electric. It is heat pumps. It's something that we will ultimately have to do. In around 2030, 2035, replacing existing gas boilers will again be banned. And so once again, at that stage, electric is and will be the only answer. So yeah, that's the future. It's going to happen at some point, whether we like it or not, to install this type of technology into your home. And so the incentive, of course, is to do it now, taking advantage of the boiler upgrade scheme, where it's £5,000 off that cost. As and when it's a case of legislation states that you have to have one of these, of course, there won't be a grant needed at that point in time, and the cost will be significantly greater. Now, that then leads on to a natural question of, well, surely when everyone has to do it due to economies of scale, these products will become cheaper. Well, that would be true if it was a new technology. But of course, this isn't new technology. When you strip it all back, a heat pump is essentially a fridge. Refrigeration technology has been around well over 100 years. The particular manufacturer we work with has been making heat pumps and air conditioning, essentially the same thing, for nearly 100 years. It's been 98 years they've been doing it for this year. So it's not a new technology. It's not the kind of thing that when it catches on, it will half in price. However, even if they were to reduce slightly in price due to economies of scale, one of the things to remember is that the actual heat pump itself is actually only quite a small part of the overall installation. There's a huge amount of pipe work and labour involved, potentially changing hot water cylinders and such like. So the heat pump side of things is only a fraction of the overall price. Labour costs, material costs and such like will obviously either stay the same or of course increase. So underlying point here really is the best time to invest in this inevitable technology is today, whilst the government is paying £5,000 towards it.